I told you, darling. It was an impromptu board meeting in Geneva, Tom Hack said, looking tanned and arrogantly composed in his bespoke suit as he tossed his Hermes briefcase onto the marble floor. He stood there, radiating entitlement in his custom Italian loafers, wheeling a monogrammed Louis Vuitton suitcase behind him. First-class upgrades, exclusive villas, private transfers. This is the kind of lifestyle that comes with my position, Tracy. You should understand that by now. I couldn't help it. I smiled a slow, dangerous smile. What's so amusing? He snapped, his jaw tightening. Oh, Tom, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You have no idea what you've just done. Before we continue with the story, be sure to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Oh, and drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from. We love seeing that. My name is Tracy Mitchell, and I'm 36 years old. I work in strategic wealth management and asset protection, and for the last 10 years, I've been married to a man who mistook inherited money for intelligence. Tom was always the arrogant one. The heir who believed his last name was an achievement, the man who thought writing checks made him powerful. Meanwhile, I was the one who actually understood how money worked, quietly building sophisticated financial structures while he played billionaire at charity galas. I ignored the warning signs, the late-night texts, the exotic perfume that wasn't mine, the way Marcy Robinson's name kept appearing in his calendar as M.R. Consulting. I wanted to believe we were partners, that the empire I'd helped protect meant something to both of us. But last week, while I was supposedly asleep, Tom made a mistake he couldn't buy his way out of. I'd been upstairs when it happened. He must have waited until he thought I was unconscious before slipping into my private office. My background in complex financial architecture had taught me to protect assets from external threats, but I never imagined I'd need those safeguards at home. That night, Tom accessed what he thought was an inactive legacy credit account, one he'd seen me mention casually months ago. He transferred the account details to his phone, authorized a massive withdrawal, and returned to bed like nothing had happened. The next morning, while reviewing my secure alerts over coffee, I noticed something extraordinary. A flood of notifications lit up my encrypted phone. Not standard bank fraud alerts, but trust misappropriation flags. I opened the secure portal to find over $1.2 million in pending charges. Designer boutiques in Paris, a private villa in Capri, first-class flights for two, a jewelry purchase in Monte Carlo that could buy a house. My stomach tightened as the pieces aligned. Tom was behind this, of course he was, but instead of panicking, I smiled. The account he'd accessed wasn't a standard credit card. It was a legacy trust protection account, a sophisticated digital tripwire designed to flag potential misappropriation of marital and trust assets. Every transaction triggers automatic alerts that go straight to the trust's legal enforcement team and creates an undeniable forensic trail. Tom had no idea. He'd just turned himself into a walking felony case. I called my lawyer, Sterling, that same morning. You're not going to believe this, I told him, recounting every detail with clinical precision. He didn't even try to hide his shock. Wait, let me understand this correctly, he said, his voice sharp with focus. He accessed the legacy account, the one that's linked to the Family Trust Protection Protocol. Exactly, I said, my voice calm but edged with steel. Tracy, Sterling said slowly. Every charge he makes is going to be flagged as potential financial crime. Have the trust enforcement officers contacted you yet? Not yet, I replied. But it's only a matter of time. For the rest of the week, I stayed silent, watching to see exactly how far Tom would take it. He left a vague text 2 days later. Extended the Geneva trip. Business opportunities. Don't wait up. I knew exactly what that meant. He was living a fantasy with Marcy, funded by what he thought was my ignorance. Every night, I watched the alerts roll in. Michelin star restaurants, exclusive yacht rentals, luxury spa treatments for two. Each notification felt like another piece of evidence, another nail in his arrogant empire. 4 days into his spree, I received a formal call from Davis, the head of our trust enforcement and asset protection division. Mrs. Hack, he said, his tone professional but urgent. We've identified significant unauthorized activity tied to your legacy trust account. Do you know who might be responsible? Yes, I replied without hesitation. My husband. There was a brief, Loaded pause. Your husband? He repeated carefully. I explained the situation, including the fact that the account was specifically structured as a marital asset protection mechanism with built-in fraud detection. Mrs. Hack, Davis said slowly. You understand what this means. Every expense he's making is creating a documented trail of trust misappropriation. This isn't just marital discord. This could trigger a full corporate audit and criminal investigation. I understand completely, I said, and I want every single transaction documented. I met Tom Hack at a private equity gala in Manhattan 12 years ago, back when I was a rising analyst at a boutique wealth management firm, and he was the freshly minted heir to a commercial real estate fortune. He was magnetic in that effortless way only inherited money can create, confident, charming, and completely unaware that his success was an accident of birth rather than achievement. I was different. Every dollar I'd earned came from understanding the invisible architecture of wealth, the complex mechanisms that separated old money from bankruptcy. Our courtship was a whirlwind of helicopter rides to the Hamptons, front row seats at Fashion Week, and intimate dinners at restaurants with no menus. Tom loved displaying his wealth, and I'll admit, I was seduced by the scale of it all. Within 18 months, we were married in a ceremony that cost more than most people's homes. What Tom never understood was that marrying me wasn't just acquiring a beautiful wife for his charity galas and board dinners. He was gaining the strategic mind that would protect and restructure his inheritance. While he played golf and attended ribbon-cutting ceremonies, I quietly rebuilt the foundation of his empire. I identified tax inefficiencies, restructured holdings, and created layered asset protection trusts that would shield his wealth from lawsuits, market volatility, and his own impulsive spending. Our life became a performance of perfection. The penthouse overlooking Central Park with floor-to-ceiling windows and Italian marble everywhere. The summer estate in the Hamptons. The private jet for weekend trips. Staff who anticipated our needs before we voiced them. On the surface, we were the perfect power couple, him with his inherited name and club memberships, me with my strategic brilliance and elegant composure. But behind the designer clothes and charity luncheons, I watched him grow more arrogant, more entitled, more certain that his money made him untouchable. Marcy Robinson appeared 2 years ago as his executive consultant, though her expertise seemed limited to long dinners and weekend conferences that never produced reports. I knew what she was. I just didn't care enough to stop it. Instead, I did something smarter. I created the legacy account 3 years ago, embedded deep within our trust structure. To anyone reviewing our finances, it looked like an inactive emergency fund, a dormant account with excellent credit terms, but it was actually a sophisticated digital alarm system, designed to flag any unauthorized access as potential trust misappropriation. Every transaction would trigger forensic tracking, legal alerts, and an audit trail that could survive any courtroom scrutiny. I built it because I knew, eventually, Tom's arrogance would make him careless. I just never imagined he'd be stupid enough to actually use it. It happened at 2:47 a.m. On a Tuesday. I was upstairs in our bedroom, pretending to sleep but actually reviewing quarterly reports on my tablet under the covers. Tom had been restless all evening, pacing between his study and the bar, taking hushed phone calls that ended abruptly whenever I entered a room. I recognized the pattern. He was planning something, and whatever it was, he didn't want me involved. Around 2:30, I heard him slip out of bed. His footsteps were careful, deliberate, the kind of quiet that screams guilt. I listened as he padded down the hallway, past the guest rooms, toward my private office at the far end of the penthouse. The door creaked. He'd never bothered to learn which hinges needed oil. I knew exactly what he was after. My office was my sanctuary, the only room in our sprawling apartment that was completely mine. Floor to ceiling, bookshelves lined with financial texts, a standing desk with 3 monitors, and most importantly, a biometric safe hidden behind a false panel in the credenza. Inside that safe were documents, property deeds, and a single black credit card embossed with gold lettering. Legacy Trust Account. I'd mentioned it casually 6 months ago during one of his complaints about expense audits. "Oh, I have an old account we never use," I'd said, waving my hand dismissively. "Emergency access, completely off the books. I keep it locked away." The bait was set. I just had to wait for him to take it. 15 minutes later, he returned to bed, his breathing slightly elevated, trying to settle back under the covers like nothing had happened. I waited, counting the seconds. At 3:04 a.m., my encrypted phone vibrated against the nightstand. I grabbed it quickly, turning away from Tom as I unlocked the screen. The notification was stark, clinical, devastating. Trust alert, asset misappropriation detected. Account, legacy, trust protection, 7,789. Transaction, $1,247,850. Authorization, override. Status, forensic tracking, initiated. My heart hammered, but not from panic. From vindication. I scrolled through the detailed report. Tom had accessed the account, transferred the details to his personal device, and authorized a massive credit line increase. Within minutes, charges began populating. 2 first-class tickets to Paris, a luxury villa rental in Capri, a private car service, jewelry deposits in Monaco. Every single transaction was flagged, documented, and forwarded to the trust's legal enforcement team. Tom stirred beside me, rolling over with a satisfied sigh. I smiled in the darkness. He'd finally done it. He'd walked straight into the trap I'd built for him, and now there was no way out. By the time the sun crested over Central Park, I'd slept exactly 20 minutes. And not because I was upset. There were no tears, no shaking hands, no pacing. I'd seen this coming for years. The only surprise was how perfectly Tom had followed the script I'd written for him. While he snored softly beside me, my encrypted reports refreshed in real time, each new authorization flowing into a pristine folder marked Evidence. At 7:02 a.m., I slipped out of bed, showered, and dressed in a navy suit that meant business rather than brunch. I made coffee the way I always did, almond milk and a single sugar, maintaining the ritual of a normal morning. Tom was still unconscious when I stepped into my office and shut the door behind me. I called Sterling first. He answered on the second ring, voice rough with sleep. "Tracy? Is everything all right?" "It's better than all right," I said, sinking into my leather chair. He finally touched the legacy account. Silence, then a sharp intake of breath. "You're certain?" "I have the alerts, timestamps, and transaction trail sitting in front of me," I replied. 1.2 million authorized at 3 a.m. And that's just the opening act. Sterling's voice shifted from groggy to razor-sharp. "Walk me through it." I laid it out calmly. Tom's late-night visit to my office. The biometric safe override. The account access. The immediate spending spree. I forwarded the encrypted report to his secure line. "Tracy," he said after a moment, "this is everything we discussed. Unauthorized access to a protected marital trust asset, documented in real time. You understand what this sets up for you in divorce court, and possibly criminal court." "I do," I said, "which is why I'm not stopping him." There was a pause. "You'll let him keep spending?" "Exactly," I said. "Every purchase he makes using that account strengthens my case. I want the pattern undeniable." After hanging up, I called Davis, the head of our asset protection trust. He already had the alerts. "Mrs. Hack, we're prepared to freeze the account and initiate immediate legal action," he said. "Not yet," I replied. "Flag everything, monitor every transaction, and compile a full forensic report. I want comprehensive documentation, merchant data, locations, timestamps, companion tickets, all of it." He hesitated. "You're aware that letting this continue increases the total exposure?" "That's the point," I said. "The higher the exposure, the clearer the misappropriation. Treat every charge as potential financial crime. I'll authorize action when he comes home." When I ended the call, my phone buzzed with a fresh alert. 2 first-class tickets to Geneva. Passenger names, Tom Hack and Marcy Robinson. I took a slow sip of coffee, savoring the moment. Let him fly. Let him wine her, dress her, drench her in stolen luxury. Every swipe of that card was another nail in his own coffin, and I was the one handing him the hammer. Tom left that afternoon with a leather garment bag, and a lie so casual, it almost impressed me. "Emergency board situation in Geneva," he said, kissing my cheek like we were still playing happy couple. "Could be a week, maybe more. Don't wait up." I smiled, touched his arm, and watched him leave. 20 minutes later, my phone confirmed what I already knew. 2 passengers checked in for Air France Flight 008 to Paris, first-class cabin, Tom Hack and Marcy Robinson. The performance had officially begun. For the next 7 days, I maintained my routine with surgical precision. Morning yoga, meetings with clients, charity luncheon on Thursday, dinner with colleagues on Friday. To anyone watching, I was the elegant, composed wife of a traveling billionaire, managing my life with grace. But every spare moment, I was tracking them. Day 1. Paris. The alerts rolled in like clockwork. The Ritz, presidential suite, $8,400 per night. Dinner at Le Cinq, $3,200 including wine. Late night shopping at Chanel, $47,000 in handbags and shoes. I could picture Marcy's face, glowing with the thrill of luxury she thought she'd earned by sleeping with a married man. Day 2. Private jet charter to Capri, $89,000. Villa rental, overlooking the Mediterranean, $52,000 for the week. I sipped my morning coffee while reviewing the manifest data. Complete with passenger names and baggage count. 2 passengers, 4 designer suitcases. The forensic detail was breathtaking. Day 3. Monaco. This was my favorite. Tom purchased a diamond tennis bracelet at Graff for $230,000. The transaction notes included engraving details. To M.R. Forever yours. I actually laughed out loud in my empty penthouse. Forever was going to be significantly shorter than he imagined. Day 4. Michelin star restaurants, private yacht rental, spa treatments for 2. Every charge meticulously logged, geotagged, and forwarded to Sterling and Davis. The file we were building wasn't just evidence of infidelity. It was a masterclass in financial misconduct, documented with the kind of precision that would make prosecutors weep with joy. Day 5. Another jewelry purchase, this time in Portofino. Emerald earrings, $180,000. By day 6, the total had crossed $1.8 million. I sat at my desk that evening, reviewing the compiled report. Every transaction tagged, every location verified, every merchant receipt captured. This wasn't just a spending spree anymore. It was a federal case wrapped in Italian leather. Tom called that night, his voice relaxed and satisfied. Miss me? Desperately. I lied, watching another alert populate on my screen. When are you coming home? Soon, darling. Very soon. I smiled. I can't wait. Tom returned on a Sunday evening, tanned and radiating the kind of smug satisfaction that only comes from getting away with something. He breezed through the door in his custom Italian suit, the same one he'd worn when he left, now wrinkled from travel. His Louis Vuitton luggage bore tags from 3 different countries, a trail of excess he didn't bother hiding. God, it's good to be home, he said, dropping his bags in the foyer like staff would materialize to handle them. Geneva was exhausting, but productive, very productive. I handed him a scotch. Neat. The way he liked it. I'm sure it was. You look relaxed for someone who spent a week in board meetings. Quote. He took a long sip, settling into the leather sofa with the ease of a man who believed himself untouchable. For the next 20 minutes, he regaled me with fictional accounts of negotiations and strategy sessions, fabrications so polished I almost admired the effort. I nodded, asked questions, played the attentive wife. Then I shifted. I noticed some unusual activity on one of the accounts. I said casually, swirling my wine. The legacy account. Do you know anything about that? His expression flickered, just for a second, before the arrogance reset. Oh, that, he said, waving his hand dismissively. I needed some liquid capital that wouldn't show up on the quarterly audits. You know how the board gets about personal expenses, so you took it without asking? He laughed. Actually laughed. Tracy, darling, we're married. What's yours is mine, right? Besides, you never use that card. It's been sitting in your safe collecting dust for years. That's not really the point, Tom. Then what is the point? He said, leaning back, completely relaxed. You're too uptight about these things. It's just money. I'll pay you back later if it makes you feel better. Though honestly, with the kind of wealth we have, does it really matter? I took a slow breath, keeping my voice even. And you used it for what? Exactly. Business development, he said smoothly. Relationship building. You wouldn't understand the nuances of high-level networking. Try me. He sighed like I was a child asking too many questions. Fine. I took Marcy to Europe. She's a valuable consultant. And the trip was necessary for certain negotiations, first-class flights, proper accommodations, appropriate entertainment. It's how business gets done at this level, Tracy. You, of all people, should know that. I smiled, setting down my glass. You're right. I should know that. What Tom didn't know was that my phone, positioned perfectly on the side table, had been recording every word since the moment he walked through the door. His admission, his dismissal, his casual confession to taking my money for his mistress, intent, admission, arrogance, all captured, time-stamped, and admissible. The next morning, I invited Tom to breakfast in our dining room, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Sun streamed through the glass, illuminating the table I'd set with our finest china. It looked like reconciliation, like forgiveness. It was an execution. Tom arrived in his monogrammed robe, still riding the high of thinking he'd gotten away with everything. He poured himself coffee, settled into his chair, and reached for the croissants I'd ordered from his favorite bakery. Tom, I said, my voice calm and clear. We need to talk about the legacy account. He rolled his eyes. Tracy, we discussed this last night. I'll transfer the funds back if it bothers you that much, though I still think you're overreacting. I'm not overreacting, I said. I'm curious if you understand what that account actually is. He paused mid-bite. It's a credit card. An old one you never used. No, I said, leaning forward. It's a legacy trust protection account, a financial tripwire designed specifically to flag unauthorized access to protected marital assets. Every transaction you made over the past week has been documented, geotagged, and forwarded to trust enforcement officers and federal investigators as potential financial misconduct. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? The flights to Paris, the villa in Capri, the jewelry for Marcy in Monaco. Every single purchase triggered forensic tracking. You didn't steal from a credit card, Tom. You misappropriated funds from a protected trust, which is a federal offense. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You're bluffing. You're just angry about Marcy and trying to scare me. Am I? Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. Not the soft chime of a delivery, but the sharp, authoritative knock of people who don't ask permission. I walked to the door and opened it. Two men in dark suits stood in the hallway, along with a uniformed court officer holding a leather portfolio. Mr. Thomas Hack, the taller man said, flashing credentials. I'm Agent Morrison, with the Financial Crimes Division. This is Agent Chen and Officer Bradford, from the New York County Court. Tom appeared behind me, his face ashen. What is this? Officer Bradford stepped forward, extending a formal document. Mr. Hack, you're being served with an emergency injunction for suspected trust asset misappropriation. All personal accounts, credit lines, and non-trust assets are hereby frozen pending a full forensic audit. The paper trembled in Tom's hands as he scanned the text. His eyes widened with each line, his breathing shallow and rapid. This is insane, he whispered. Tracy, tell them this is a mistake. I met his gaze, my voice steady and cold. It's not a mistake, Tom. It's exactly what you earned. His confidence didn't just crack. It shattered completely, leaving behind only raw, desperate fear. The penthouse became a crime scene of privilege unraveling. Within hours, Tom's personal accounts were locked, his credit cards declined, his access to liquid capital severed. The man who'd spent a decade believing money made him invincible suddenly couldn't buy lunch without permission. Agent Morrison and his team spent the afternoon cataloging evidence, cross-referencing Tom's European spending spree with the forensic reports I'd compiled. Every receipt, every geotag, every timestamp painted the same picture. Deliberate misappropriation of protected assets for personal luxury and infidelity. Tom sat on the sofa, still in his robe, watching his empire collapse in real time. He made frantic calls to his attorney, his accountant, his board members. Each conversation ended the same way. Silence, followed by barely concealed panic. By evening, when the investigators finally left, He tried one last play. "Tracy, please," he said, his voice stripped of arrogance, replaced with something closer to desperation. "We can fix this. I'll cooperate fully, return everything, end things with Marcy. Just tell them this was a misunderstanding." I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker to life below. "A misunderstanding?" "Yes," he said quickly. "A terrible judgment call. I wasn't thinking clearly. But we're married. We can work through this." I turned to face him. "Tom, you didn't just take money from an account. You accessed a protected trust designed to safeguard our assets from external threats, and you used it to fund a fair. You documented your own betrayal in 4-star hotels and jewelry stores across Europe. I'll make it right," he pleaded. "Whatever you want, I'll do it." "What I want," I said, my voice cold and final, "is a divorce." His face crumbled. "Tracy, tomorrow morning, Sterling will file a petition, citing financial fraud and misconduct. The forensic evidence gives me an insurmountable legal advantage. You won't just lose money, Tom. You'll lose everything. We can go to counseling," he tried desperately. "Start over. I love you." I almost laughed. "You don't love me. You loved what I built for you. The structures I created to protect your inheritance while you played billionaire. And the moment you thought I wasn't watching, you proved exactly what I was worth to you. That's not fair." "Fair?" I said quietly. "You stole from me. Not money, trust. Respect. A decade of my intelligence and loyalty. And trust, Tom, has a much higher price than the $1.8 million you spent on Marcy." He opened his mouth, then closed it, finally understanding there was no negotiation left. I walked past him toward my office, each step feeling lighter than the last. "Your attorney will receive the filing in the morning," I said without turning back. "I suggest you find somewhere else to sleep tonight." The divorce took 4 months to finalize, though the outcome was never in question. Sterling presented the forensic evidence with surgical precision: the unauthorized account access, the European spending trail, Tom's recorded confession, Marcy's name engraved on $230,000 worth of jewelry purchased with misappropriated trust funds. Tom's legal team tried to negotiate, but there was nothing to negotiate. The evidence was irrefutable, the law unambiguous. In the end, Tom settled because the alternative was criminal prosecution and complete financial annihilation. The settlement was extraordinary. I received $47 million in liquid assets, the penthouse, the Hamptons estate, and a 15% stake in Tom's company holdings, generating perpetual income, independent of his control. More importantly, I retained ownership of the trust structures I'd built, the intellectual architecture that had protected his wealth for a decade. He got to keep his name and avoid prison, barely. The board wasn't as forgiving. News of the financial misconduct investigation leaked within weeks, and Tom's reputation fractured beyond repair. Shareholders questioned his judgment. Partners distanced themselves. Within 2 months of our divorce finalization, he was quietly asked to step down from active leadership, relegated to a ceremonial role with no real power. The untouchable billionaire had become a cautionary tale. I didn't attend the final board meeting where they announced his demotion. I was in my new office in Tribeca, smaller than the penthouse but entirely mine, meeting with 3 prospective clients who needed sophisticated asset protection strategies. My reputation, it turned out, had only grown stronger. The woman who'd outsmarted a billionaire and rebuilt her empire from the ashes of betrayal was exactly who people with serious money wanted protecting their interests. Marcy disappeared from Tom's life within weeks of the asset freeze. Apparently, love fades quickly when the credit cards stop working. 6 months after the divorce, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, the one I'd won fair and square, watching the sun set over Central Park. My phone buzzed with a notification. Another client signed, another deal structured, another empire secured through intelligence rather than inheritance. Tom had taught me something valuable, though he'd never understand it. Money without strategy is just numbers. Power without intellect is just noise. And a woman who knows how to build her own empire doesn't need a man's name to prove her worth. I'd walked into that marriage as Tracy Mitchell, brilliant but tethered to someone else's legacy. I walked out as myself, finally free, knowing that my mind had always been the most valuable asset in the room. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.